Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. I'm Tom Hannafin. He's Justin King. Today, we're taking a look at what we learned from Penn State's training camp for the 2025 season. A lot of little news and notes that came out of the last week or so as training camp has been winding down and the semester is getting ready to start. So everybody is going to focus on class, just a little bit. Week 0, obviously, this weekend for those that are competing. And then Penn State is going to kick off on August 30th at home against Nevada. According to FanDuel right now, Penn State is favored by 44.5 in that game. So we'll see what Penn State puts on the field, what we can learn in that game, plus the FIU game, plus the Villanova game, all of that before eventually playing Oregon at home on September 27th. So, Justin, just kind of looking back here at camp, what was your overall feel regarding the team?
High expectations, so it's a matter of handling that from a mental standpoint. I think we know that they had talent just all over the place, reloading. They've been recruiting at a high clip for the past, since for James' tenure at Penn State. And so now it's just a matter of going into the season with expectation and not being like the dark horse in the scene, whether it's a player or individual and the whole team as a collective. And how do they handle that? Right. It's one thing when you're coming up and no one's expecting anything from you. So you're essentially playing with house money, how you play and all that different type of thing. So now going in where you're viewed as the number 2 team in the country, there's expectations, whether you're a first year starter or this is your last hurrah, there's an expectation that people have on you. So that's what I'm interested to see how these guys carry it from a mental standpoint.
Just looking at some of the numbers, according to FanDuel, Penn State is the best odds to win 9+ regular season games. Penn State is the best odds to win 10+ regular season games. Penn State is the best odds to win 11+ regular season games. And Penn State is the best odds to go undefeated during the 2025 regular season, according to FanDuel. And all of that is steadily escalated. And of course, the AP preseason poll has come out. Penn State is number 2 behind Texas, the coaches poll. All the stuff that doesn't matter, in the words of James Franklin, it really doesn't, because once you start playing, then everything will kind of shake out. What I'd like to do here, Justin, is kind of go position by position and kind of say, hey, what do we learn about all of these different groups? So I want to start with the offense. Let's start with quarterback. Is there anything new we learned about Drew Aller, in your opinion, other than that he's ready for his final season?
Nope. Hopefully we didn't learn anything, but yeah,
he got himself in even better shape than he was in last year. I think that was really the biggest takeaway, but just his leadership, being named a captain once again, it sounded like what we expected to hear from Drew Aller, just that incremental progress.
Well, for sure. And the main thing is that expectation piece being on his shoulders, right? Even last year, having a statistically nice season, and now coming into this year, where it's like, all right, but now the team's expecting you to go to the national championship and perform in games where kind of you can fall back on, hey, we didn't have receivers or whatever type of variables that came up in the offense last year. They don't exist this year. So as a quarterback, how do we handle that? Being the top dog, projected first round pick, top 5 team, and handling all that pressure or expectation.
Backup quarterback. It sounds like there was a degree of separation between Ethan Grunkemeyer and Jackson Smolik, who's going to be that number 2. James Franklin said this could potentially be a battle that goes on until the 2026 season begins. And that's the luxury of having Drew Aller right now, but you do want to have a competent backup in case that guy has to go in. And it did sound like towards the back end of camp that Ethan Grunkemeyer was taking more reps with the 1s and 2s, and Jackson Smolik taking more reps with the reserves below that. So whether or not that's going to indicate that Ethan Grunkemeyer is absolutely the number 2, we're going to have to wait and see. James Franklin has said a number of times it could be a matter of who had the best week in practice. Okay, Jackson Smolik is the number 2 quarterback this week. Maybe it's Ethan Grunkemeyer. And again, it's the beauty of having 3 non-conference games that are all very, very winnable. No disrespect to Nevada, to FIU, to Villanova, but it's quite the luxury that Penn State has there to start the season in what kind of feels like an NFL preseason for them. So you're going to have the chance to see more of these guys, get them live in-game reps, and you'll learn more about the backup quarterback spot. And then, of course, a bye week before you host Oregon. So a lot that Penn State still can learn when it comes to the backup quarterbacks. Moving to running back, fortunately, we didn't learn anything new really about Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, kind of the point you were saying before about Drew Aller. But it sounds like Stan Drayton is doing that proverbial fine-tuning. Have you heard anything else about 10 and 13?
Nope. They're healthy and ready to go.
Perfect. That's all you want to hear. Almost the inverse is kind of the guys behind them. And it's been a lot of bumps and bruises for the likes of Cam Wallace, Quentin Martin Jr., and Corey Smith. Tyke Hayes is also in that mix of like, who's going to be the number 3 running back? So to what you've heard, is there anybody that's really the clear-cut number 3?
Nope, not that I can confirm.
I've heard a good amount of positivity about Cam Wallace, but again, availability is your greatest ability. So we're going to have to see. And again, that setup early in the season is really going to help Penn State. Offensive line, I think we're going to see a lot of different combinations with this offensive line again in the first 3 weeks. And I think you'll continue to see a lot of combinations as the season goes on. My full expectation is starting 5 is left tackle Drew Shelton, left guard Vega Ioane, center Nick Dawkins, captain once again, right guard Anthony Donko, right tackle Nolan Rucci in his last year of eligibility. And then it sounds like from there, you've got great position flexibility thanks to the fantastic Phil Troutwine in that the star freshman from last season going into his second season this year, Cooper Cousins, is a guy who is the third center or maybe the first guard option. And it just depends on who potentially would come out of a game and where do they want to bump somebody, something like that. So overall, the depth and the health of the offensive line sounds pretty good at this point in time. What are your feelings on that front?
I mean, I think we feel good on both sides of the ball, like from the big guy standpoint. Again, not having any major injuries going throughout camp is a big one, right? I mean, and now getting ready for the first game, that being the case, now it's just a matter of just proving the depth at these first 3 games, like you said, probably rotating more guys in than your typical games. But I mean, you feel good up front moving forward.
Looking at tight ends, Khalil Dinkins, we highlighted him when we did an episode about potential breakout stars for Penn State in 2025. It feels like, Khalil Dinkins is the number 1, and then you'll see a healthy dose of Luke Reynolds and Andrew Rappelier. I continue to talk about how much I like what Joey Schlaffer has to bring forward, but at the same time, he feels kind of like he's just in a deep tight end room. So I sincerely hope he's a guy that's with Penn State for years to come. But at the moment, just kind of feels like, hey, there's only so many reps. Hell, if Penn State could put 4 tight ends on the field and win games, I think Andy Kotelnicki would do it. Not sure how you'd pull that off necessarily, but a lot of confidence there. And you've had this experience inevitably as a player when you do hear a lot of buzz about a guy, you take it with a grain of salt, but it just does continue to be a lot of positivity from the coaches and the players. It's not just the coaches saying, hyping up a guy for the season. His teammates continue to shower praise on him. Khalil Dinkins, what are your expectations for him this year?
Like I said, I think he's going to have a breakout season. I mean, from the casual fan standpoint, he's already have a high touchdown ratio, but he's one of those guys that really can present himself as an X factor and being able to more athletic than your typical linebackers, bigger, just as athletic as your safeties that you're going against, and understanding the game and put him in positions where he can take advantage of those mismatches creates a dynamic in this offense that opens up a lot of things, right? When you talk about having multiple tight ends that can play, it really puts a stress on the defense, whether it's the personnel that they have to play, whether they play nickel or base personnel, because you have to be able to defend the run, the pass. And when you have that, there's just different type of advantages, whether it's edges on the run game or being able to position yourself right in the pass game. So him being able to open that up, I think is a critical piece to this Penn State offense going deep into the playoffs and hopefully in a national championship.
We'll see how that shakes out for Penn State in regards to their chances to win the national championship. According to our friends at FanDuel, Penn State has the 4th best odds, plus 700 at the time of this recording, behind only Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas. So it's interesting how Penn State's chances within the regular season and even win the Big Ten championship game have escalated, but even still that national championship hope is like, there's still some favoritism for those big three real blue bloods. Not to say that Penn State is not one of them, but teams that have won national championships within the last 20-something years, something like that. So we'll keep an eye on that. I want to round out the offense with, of course, the wide receivers. So from what you've heard, the transfers, Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, Treybor Pena, are they the real deal, or is the jury still out?
I think they bring that nice veteran depth to a room that needs production, right? I think they all present something a little different, whether it's Treybor Pena being used to spacing, an inside receiver, a guy from USC being a big body, competitive receiver, and then Trayvon Ross bringing the other pieces into the table. So I think that mixed along with some of the young freshmen or the young players that are on the team that have maybe taken a step to get better this year. I think I'm interested to see how they mesh and move in these first couple games.
James Franklin was on the record saying that Kyron Hudson earned the number 1 jersey. In your experience, having worn that same jersey, granted it's a different era than when you wore it was under Joe Paterno. James Franklin might look at it in a different way. When he gives out that number, what's his thought process?
Honestly, I can't even say I didn't know it was a thing to give out the number 1 jersey, to be honest with you.
All right.
So I'm just learning about that.
Fair enough. We'll keep an eye on him, Ross. Pena, for what it's worth, a lot of conversation about how he's really embraced the strength and conditioning program. Looks faster, more explosive than when he first got on campus. Not to say that he lacked in those departments when he was having a fantastic season at Syracuse last year, but there's a lot of positivity around Treybor Pena internally, locally, nationally. I think there are a lot of people that believe he could be the steal of the spring transfer portal window in all of college football. So we'll see how Treybor Pena and company do. The interesting thing for me, just kind of looking back at camp here, Justin, I was expecting and hoping to hear a lot about Tyser Denmark. Really didn't. The receiver that we heard a lot about, that was a young guy, was Kobe Howard. Kobe Howard running with the 1s and 2s at different points during training camp. Not to say that Tyser Denmark, didn't get that opportunity. Everybody gets to cycle in at those points in time, depending on where you are on the depth chart. But Kobe Howard made a name for himself during spring ball and during training camp. A lot of credit to him. What have you heard about the wide receivers that aren't the transfers?
He's the name that I've been hearing has been really popping and flashing throughout the past year. Be the real deal coming up here. So excited to see that. Tyser Denmark and all those guys coming up, being able to present something different that we haven't seen, whether it's just a level of explosion and just a little bit more liveliness on the outside. But those are the 2 names that I've heard the most from a splash standpoint.
I'm very excited to see if there is a young guy that can break through and just be that spark. I kind of think about, not to compare everything to you, but when you were a freshman, you were very much that spark at wide receiver. Derek Williams was the number 1, but you were very much that splash guy. And ironically, Kobe Howard is a dude who can also contribute on special teams. And Penn State's cup runneth over right now on special teams in terms of you have Kobe Howard, Treybor Pena, Devontae Ross, Zion Tracy, and a handful of other guys that they can put back there at punt and kick returner, not to mention some of the running backs, Cam Wallace, Quentin Martin Jr., Corey Smith. I mean, Nick Singleton still returns kicks. It seems like night and day based on what Penn State was experiencing. Maybe, was it like 2 years ago? We were kind of like, what's this position going to be? And also Caden Saunders, there was hope for him. He's out with a long-term injury. But all of a sudden, special teams, especially in terms of returning kicks and punts, you have all these weapons and all these options. And again, that's another thing that you did. So do you kind of expect Kobe Howard to be Penn State's answer to Justin King in 2025, 20 years later?
20 years later, I don't know if he's going to jump onto the defense, though, and try to cover some guys. But no, hopefully he provides that spark and, again, brings in that excitement that this offense, I believe, deserves and needs for years in the future, not just this year. But I think having that spark opens up an offense. It's like in basketball, we create spacing and different things. You can force the defense to play a different way when you have guys that can really stress the field. So if he can provide that, man, I'm really looking forward to it. But I've heard nothing but great things about the kid. So I'm really excited about seeing him this fall.
State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today. Also on special teams, we'd heard during camp from special teams coordinator Justin Lustig that the punter position battle right there between Riley Thompson and Gabe Nwosu, who's been the primary kickoff specialist, big number 99, can crush that thing into the back of the end zone. So how does that translate to the punting game? Again, luxury of 3 non-conference games, very winnable, beatable opponents, that sort of thing. So I expect some of these battles that we've heard about to continue on into September a little bit, and we'll see how that goes. And then I think people know what Penn State brings to the table in Ryan Barker. He was very consistent last year. Also, I don't want to forget about somebody who was consistent last year and reliable wide receiver, Liam Clifford, still a veteran presence, steady Eddie. You know what you're getting there. Penn State feels very confident in him. So I don't want to forget about the younger Clifford. Moving to the defense, you and I recorded last week, and after we had finished recording, there was an explosion of hype and buzz around defensive end Chaz Coleman. And there's a lot of expectations for the young underclassmen defensive ends. And I'll get to what Penn State expects for its starters and probably its second line on the defensive line. But what did you hear about Chaz Coleman? People have been raving about him.
He was always a physical freak, or just like a player that, had special ability. I mean, and in camp, I didn't hear too much from anyone about him beyond that he had, nice athletic prowess, but I heard that prior. So again, we just see what happens when the games start, but I just didn't hear too much. I mean, besides knowing that he was a athletically gifted guy.
If I heard it correctly, he was a quarterback in high school, and his senior year switched to defensive end. So that's a huge change in your responsibilities as a football player. And he flashed, and that was why he was somebody that maybe other schools picked up on late. But it is a really good opportunity this year. I know there's questions about Zariah Fisher. I'll be the first person to say it's like, yeah, there's ability, there's hype, there's confidence within the building about what Zariah Fisher is going to be at defensive end. But with Max Granville going out with a long-term injury, there's opportunity in terms of depth and who's that second, third, fourth guy at both defensive end spots. So you're going to see young guys like Yvonne Kamaju, Jalen Harvey, Malachi Williams, and potentially Chaz Coleman get their opportunities. Are they going to have a ton? If they earn them, we'll have to see what happens. But you got a couple of guys there in Kamaju and Coleman who might burn their red shirts this year. We'll see what happens on that front. But sticking with the defensive line, it's pretty much who you're expecting. Denai Dennis Sutton, Zariah Fisher, Zane Durant, and then also Alonzo Ford, who's been dealing with injuries much of this season from last season, recovering, getting acclimated to Jim Knowles' defense. Xavier Gilliam and Ty Blanding being, 3 and 4, I would say, at defensive tackle. And then it is going to be just a lot of young guys being able to rotate in their defensive end. So when you hear that, how do you feel?
When you have players in the right positions, I always feel good. Like, to be honest, like when you're like, you didn't name any players that you think that can be deficient in the situations that they'll be placed in. So with that being the case, they do their jobs. I feel good about the depth and talent that is there, and especially knowing the ilk of coaching now we have at Penn State and with Deion Barnes. You feel good about that level of personnel, or that much personnel, to be able to go into the season with, especially like knowing how they rotate players and make sure that guys are getting reps to develop. You know what I mean? And I think they're one of the few programs that focuses on that in terms of sparsing out snap counts throughout their 2 to 3 top players at each position. So I feel good that they have enough guys that have at least that talent level to be considered an impact player moving up in this season.
I'm very curious to see how the depth at defensive line goes through this season. Do you see progress? Do you see more rotational guys? Again, those first 3 weeks of the season gives you a lot of chances to look at a lot of people. Penn State will probably be doing the same thing at linebacker because Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator, was pretty blunt about what's going on at linebacker. Now, granted, just want to preface this, Penn State expects to run a 4-2-5 base defense, 4 down linemen, 2 primary linebackers, and then 5 defensive backs. So you just won't see a ton of packages where there are 3 linebackers in this defense, to be clear. Jim Knowles has said right now there are 3 linebackers that they know they can trust. So that's mildly concerning, but still, those 3 linebackers shouldn't surprise you. Dom DeLuca, once again, a captain for Penn State football. Tony Rojas, who's banged up a lot of last year and has supposedly had a very, very strong camp and come in and look really good. And then the transfer from UNC, Amari Campbell. After that, Jim Knowles has said, really doesn't trust any of these guys yet. Do you find that concerning, or is that kind of like, yeah, we kind of expected that?
I guess you can say it's concerning. That's coming to the heart of your defense. And if he's saying that doesn't fully trust anybody, that's honest. But I think it's also lighting the fire up their butts moving into these first couple games of like, hey, let's tighten it up and make sure that we're making our right reads and no mental errors moving forward. But I guess we'll see in the first couple of weeks if it's concerning.
I'm excited to see more out of Keon Wiley, Specca, Kari Jackson. Like there are guys there that you need to see them. They need to get the reps. And also, let's not count out Campbell and Rojas as 2 guys. Campbell has never put on a Penn State uniform and played in live action. You know what you're getting in Dom DeLuca, but again, it's a different defense. And then Tony Rojas dealing with injuries for much of the offseason and was banged up virtually all of last season, but still played at a very high level. He's got to get on the field and let it rip in this new defense and be really one of the primary leaders of the defense, if not the primary leader on this defense. So a lot's going to be asked of these linebackers, but you do take a little bit of comfort in that. It's like, hey, they don't necessarily need a ton of them. They just need the right ones contributing there. I'll wind down here on Lockdown U, the defensive backs, and I will defer to you what you have heard from the great Terry Smith, Anthony Poindexter, etc. Who do you expect to be the starting 5 defensive backs for Penn State?
Oh, the starting 5. Starting 5, you got to go Harris. Say probably Collins on the other side, and then they're doing the 4-2-5, so you got to go 7 at nickel.
Zion Tracy. Yep.
Zion, one of my faves. Zaki Wheatley and King Mack, maybe?
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a battle between Day Lane and King Mack. Not sure if there's been any, but a true separation of one or the other. And then not to rule out Antoine Belgrave Shorter in that mix, Kenny Willis Jr., Colin Dinkins also. Like, it sounds like they have some options there at safety. And then in terms of corner, Elliott Washington II, who was the king of winter workouts, the king of spring ball.
Mama bet, keep your eyes peeled for Darius Dixon. He crushed the development learning curve when he came in. So that's another one that keep your eyes peeled.
That's another one. I'm glad you mentioned Darius Dixon because Kamaju and Coleman, a defensive end, and then Dixon are 3 guys that there's a really strong possibility their red shirts get burned. And Darius Dixon is a guy that we've heard from virtually every coach on the staff being like, hey, we have to get him on the field. And it makes it very difficult to keep him off the field, whether it's special teams or within the secondary for Penn State. The fact that Jim Knowles continues to harp on the fact he's like, this dude should be in high school, and he's playing at such a high level already, knowing you've got that competition at defensive back. I love that starting 5 that you have. And again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I believe the deepest position on the defense is defensive back and will be the strength of this defense in 2025. Just how it looks and feels might just feel a little different than what Penn State fans are used to. I think the luxury of last season where you can get home with 4, you might not have. I hope I'm pleasantly incorrect this season, but I feel very confident in Lockdown U. I know you always do.
100%.
Outside of those position battles, etc., any feelings or takeaways from camp that are important to you at this point in time? New defensive coordinator, a lot of new pieces, obviously freshman, transfer portal, all that sort of stuff. But this is a heavy veteran team.
Yeah, at this point, it sounds like a recorder, right? Because the season's here, and now I'm excited to see what guys look like when that red light comes on. And they have an opponent across the way. They're making the right decisions, how they're playing, and the attitude. Because again, I'm always interested. Even when I was a recruiting coordinator, you see like a young team that had a lot of promise, like a freshman or sophomore. When that junior film and senior film comes back, do they take that next step mentally and essentially apply pressure like we're dominating everybody? Like, okay, I'm playing against little kids. I'm looking to see that in these first 3 games from Penn State to just see where their mental's at from a team standpoint. So I don't have anything else to say from the offseason and projections and all that stuff, but I'm excited for the season to start.
I'm with you. I'm tired of talking about what they could be, speculating, all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm dying to see games. I'm excited about week 0 this weekend. I'm going to be a total junkie, and I'm going to watch a good amount of stuff. Farmageddon in Dublin. I'm excited about Iowa State, Kansas State. So you can get in on the action with our friends at FanDuel and make every moment more. We encourage that this weekend with week 0. Penn State kicks off August 30th at home at Beaver Stadium, hosting Nevada. Get in our comment section on YouTube. Let us know how you guys feel about all of this. Tell us if you're excited about certain positions, worried about certain positions, how you feel about the hype going into this season. There's certainly a ton to talk about. Later on this week, we'll do a little bit more of a robust outlook on the 2025 season now that we can put training camp in the rear view. That'll be right here on State of State, presented by FanDuel. Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month. You can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.